What can you tell us about Jeffrey Clark's testimony today? There is speculation that because it was only an hour and 40 minutes, he must have used the Fifth Amendment for an awful lot of answers.
I attended each of the depositions today, and while I can't comment on their contents, there's a certain amount already in the public record about Jeffrey Clark, mostly through public proceedings in the Senate. And in those Senate proceedings, it became clear that at the very highest levels of the Justice Department, there was an effort spearheaded by Mr. Clark to misuse that department to promulgate false claims of massive fraud, to try to discourage Georgia from sending a slate of electors or encourage them to send an alternate slate, and an effort to replace the leadership of the Justice Department that resisted his efforts and install himself. And these are shocking things. I think Lawrence, his counsel, did acknowledge when we had a contempt proceeding earlier involving Mr. Clark, his likelihood of invoking the Fifth. And that specter for someone at the top of the Justice Department that was indicated previously by his attorney that he may not be able to testify because he fears what he says might incriminate him. Pretty breathtaking when you have a top former Justice Department official in that kind of position.
In your judgment as a former federal prosecutor yourself, do you see a scenario where this committee might be, at the end of its processes, making a series of criminal referrals to the Justice Department, including on witnesses like Jeffrey Clark, who presumably will use the Fifth Amendment as much as they possibly can? The Fifth Amendment, of course, actually is used when there is a legitimate belief that the witness could be indicted by delivering answers. So might that be one of the outcomes of this investigation?
You know, it's certainly possible with respect to any of the evidence that we gather that we will make referrals to the Justice Department. Indeed, of course, we have made a couple of referrals already in the case of people who were in contempt of Congress for refusing to appear. But if we uncover sufficient evidence of other crimes, we certainly can refer that to the Justice Department. But it's important for us to point out the Justice Department isn't waiting on us. They shouldn't wait on us. And historically, they don't wait on us. So they ought to be investigating these issues themselves. I do have some concern, as I've expressed to you before, Lawrence, that vis-a-vis some things, I don't see much action at the Justice Department, such as with respect to the former president's efforts to get the former or the current Secretary of State of Georgia to find 11,780 votes that don't exist. Those kind of referrals shouldn't wait on us. Those are the kind of things the department should be looking into on their own.
Throughout his presidency and afterwards, Donald Trump has tried publicly to influence potential witnesses against him. Paul Manafort, when he was facing criminal prosecution, Donald Trump would say kind things about him, clearly in an attempt to keep Paul Manafort from saying any unkind things about Donald Trump to prosecutors. We have seen this promise now about pardons for January 6th attackers. That, among other things, is an attempt to influence what they might say about the Trump administration, about Donald Trump. Also now we have this unprecedented lawsuit filed today by Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. In effect, a lawsuit about witness intimidation against Donald Trump Jr., Rudy Giuliani, and others who were trying to intimidate this witness in his testimony to your first impeachment investigation.
Lawrence, that's absolutely right. The former president has a long history of attempts to intimidate witnesses and to reward those that agree to either keep silent or lie to cover up for him. He, for example, pardoned Roger Stone for lying to Congress to cover up for the president. He and his Attorney General Bill Barr made a criminal case involving Michael Flynn go away completely after Flynn pled guilty repeatedly to lying to the FBI. And as you say, he dangled pardons in front of Manafort. He also went after people who cooperated with the government, like Michael Cohen, and called them a rat, used language we would expect of organized crime. I think his recent statements, as well as the public reports of prior inquiries about pardoning people involved in attacking the Capitol Police that day, they go to a couple things. They go to his intent If this violence against the Capitol wasn't part of the plan or wasn't something he condoned, then why would he consider pardoning them? So I think it's very important evidence as to his intent. But it also is, I think, part of that broader pattern, Lawrence, to influence potentially what witnesses have to say or whether they will say it.
We've learned a lot since that first impeachment investigation that you conducted about Donald Trump's attempt to use the Ukrainian president in his own reelection campaign, try to convince him to somehow damage Joe Biden if he could in the campaign. Colonel Vindman listened to that phone call as the president was making it, as Donald Trump was making it. He stepped forward to testify about it. He now says in sworn legal documents now in this lawsuit that there was a concerted conspiracy to intimidate him as a witness. Did you sense that at the time when you were taking his testimony in that room?
Oh, without a doubt, we sensed the effort by the former president and his allies, by his son and others, to smear Colonel Vindman, to attack him personally, to question his patriotism. Sadly, I think some of the Republicans during his deposition similarly tried to impugn his patriotism, this dedicated soldier who had served and earned a Purple Heart, I believe, for his service. And so I think that on the basis of what we observed publicly, that he has a pretty strong case to make. And I wish him every success, because no one should have gone through what he did for doing his duty and answering a subpoena.